Hi everybody, thanks ever so much for attending. I'll make it just a minute or so to the start time. So we'll just go on mute and we'll just give a few other people the chance to join, and we'll start shortly after the hour. Okay, hello everybody. I'll make it a little after 3 GMT, so I think it's probably a good time for us to get started. I'll take the introduction slides a bit slowly because I can see attendees are joining the call as we speak. Just give them that little bit of opportunity to join before we get into the meat of the session. So I'd like to start by welcoming you all to this webinar, where we're going to be discussing 5 ways to improve employee experience with software asset management. We are going to have quite a high number of attendees today. So typically we normally place everybody on mute just to eliminate any background noise, especially people who are working from home and might have kids running around in the background like I do. But please feel free to make use of the chat facility, just in case you want to raise any queries as we go along the way. Our marketing manager, Ben Eagling, is going to be monitoring this, and we're going to do our very best to answer as we go along, or if the flow might be interrupted, we'll just cover it off in the Q&A session at the end. We've penciled in the hour for us to get through this, and we'll try to wrap up the demo within 45 to 50 minutes, so that should you have any questions you'd like to ask, there's going to be more than enough time at the end. Hopefully Ben has pressed record on the session, and we will naturally send out a link for you to review at leisure, anything that might pique your interest. And of course, we're going to have our support teams available via email or phone for any queries that might crop up later on. So this is a joint event hosted by License Dashboard and Nexthink. My name is David Chamberlain. I'm the Senior VP at License Dashboard, closely aligned to the development of our technology platform. For those that don't know us as an organisation, we are an ITAM tools vendor who also provides services as well as delivering our platform of products globally for around 15 years now. Obviously today we're going to be closely following governmental advice on social distancing and the working from home. So uniquely, we are going to be broadcasting live from 3 very different locations. I'm in a small fishing town on the coast of Yorkshire called Scarborough. Ben is in the grand city of York itself. And we are very pleased to be joined virtually today by Rod Bridgman from Nexthink, who's going live from Buckingham. So Rod, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rod Bridgman. I'm a solution consultant from Nexthink. I've been with the company about 9 months, but I've been working in IT service management for around the last 16 years, and I was involved in supply chain management prior to that. So looking forward to taking you through some interesting stuff this afternoon.
Thanks, Rod. Obviously, Rod and I are going to do our best to keep the session as slick as possible, particularly at the changeover points in the presentation and, of course, our demos. But I'm sure you're going to appreciate there might be some juggling around that we have to do. So the agenda. The words SAM and ITAM are often associated with some of the negatives of the world that we work in. Things like non-compliance, risk, shortfalls, vendor audits, resource-consuming, painful baselines. But the reality for today's progressive SAM teams is that these are actually, to a large degree, under control by the people in those teams. Might be extended to a managed service provider too as part of your wider team, but also the technology in products like Nexthink and the licensed dashboard platform of products. We're a very mature community, and nowadays we are able to take advantage of some of the real gold standard data we capture as part of what it is that we do. So we're going to cover brief overviews of digital employee experience with Nexthink. I'm going to cover off the software asset management element with licensed dashboard. And then we're going to explore some of the best ways that SAM can be used to assist with digital employee experience. So this might be ranging from standardizing software across your network to digital transformation initiatives to enable your mobile workers, which of course is more relevant now than ever. And the format's going to be predominantly slides, a couple of demos of the products, and then of course the usual wrap-up Q&A session at the end. Again, just to reiterate, Ben's here, so please make full use of the chat facility as we go along. We will do our very best to respond if the flow of the session allows, but anything we don't deal with on the fly, we can certainly mop up at the end, so to speak. So over to you at this stage, Rod.
Okay, thanks very much. Actually, Dave, you could hit it once more, please, actually.
Sure.
Right, okay, so give a little bit of background about Nexthink. Not all of you might have heard of our organization, but basically we're a privately held firm. We're co-headquartered in both Lausanne in Switzerland, where we were actually founded, but we're also co-headquartered in Boston, obviously in the United States. We're circa about 600 people. We were started in 2004, and fundamentally all we do is digital experience management. And so what is digital experience management then? Well, just to give you a bit of background about what we do and where we come from, lots of organizations have increasingly more and more complex IT. And when you look at the traditional IT delivery model, you tend to have infrastructure, which either comes from your own data center or from one you're actually procuring services from the cloud. You have various applications that you then run on that infrastructure, and you deliver those applications to your end user community via some sort of a network. Now, in order for all this to try and work, what organizations tend to do is buy a monitoring tool for each one of those critical pieces, the infrastructure, the applications, and the network. And fundamentally, they try and make sure everything is green for their end users. But more and more what we hear, and I'm sure you're familiar with the concept, is everything coming out of IT is green, but the end users are unhappy. Now, Nexthink does something completely different. It looks from the point of view of the user experience rather than what's being delivered out of IT. So, for example, traditionally, IT is what we describe as this inside-out delivery model, whereby IT push services out to the business where they're then consumed. But what Nexthink do is they look from the outside in. They look at what the end user is actually receiving, what they're consuming in terms of those IT services, and we're being able to measure and understand exactly what's good and what's not so good. And this is really important for organizations because fundamentally it's those end users that are actually potentially where they're driving supply chain processes, where they're driving sales and order processes, where they're driving financial transactions. It's those key end user capabilities that are actually driving revenues for your organization. Let's move on to the next slide, please, Dave. So thank you. So how does Nexthink actually do this then? Well, this is a view of what we describe as our digital experience score. And what Nexthink does, I say we focus on those end users and actually on the devices those end users use. Doesn't matter if they're desktops or laptops, PCs and Macs. Fundamentally, what we do is we deploy a very small data collector on those individual devices. And what we do is we then collect information, we drip feed information back to an engine. The engine processes that data, and we then have two views that we actually see things in, see information in. One of them is this view here, which we can see over on the right-hand side of the screen, which is our management portal, and contains our digital experience score in it, which I'll come on to discuss in a little bit more detail in a second. And we also have what we call a finder, which is a technical tool where we drill down into the granular level of detail that we collect. But in terms of that data that we collect, we have around about 800 out-of-the-box metrics that we can collect information for, and we can display in one of these two visual methods. What we also do, on the other hand, is we collect what we describe as user sentiment as well. And so we gain feedback from those end users by having small pop-ups, by asking them exactly how they're feeling about how IT is performing, how those services are actually going. And so what we do is we collect those hard 800 objective metrics, and we collect the soft subjective user feedback. And what we can then do is we can then combine them together to get a full picture of exactly what's going on with our end users. And actually, Nexthink is completely unique in having the ability to actually have both these two forms of data and to be able to correlate them together to find out what's really going on. And what we do is, on a daily basis, we roll all that information up and provide a score out of 10, which is called our digital experience score, which is what you can see highlighted in that little circle there, roughly in the middle of the screen. So we literally roll all that information up on a daily basis, and we score it out of 10, and then we can plot that on a daily basis to try and drive continual service improvement. And the real reasons why people buy Nexthink are sort of threefold. Firstly, you can use it operationally. You can understand, if what blue screens are happening, what screen freezes are happening, what the performance of applications is like. You can use it as a tactical level. You can use it for, say you deployed a new application and nobody's using it. So why are they not using it then? Is it purely a case, is that a training issue? Or is it the fact they are still using the old system and don't know they should be using the new system? So it can be used tactically. It can also be used what we describe as strategically as well. You might want to migrate services to the cloud. And actually, in doing that, you want to make sure, first of all, you get the process right, and you can score it using our digital experience score with a small pilot group. And then once you've got the processes right, you can then roll it out across your business to provide a successful program of change. But we'll discuss this more as the presentation goes on. Next slide, please, Dave. So here is just one example of how this digital experience score has been used by one of our customers. This was a large pharmaceutical firm, and when they first rolled out Nexthink, you can see down the bottom left-hand corner, they had a digital experience score of 7.1. I think over about the next 14 or 15 months, they put in programs of work to address the shortcomings they found in their service delivery and from the user perspective, how IT were performing. And over a period of time, they managed to increase their digital experience score up to the level of 9.4 we can see over there on the right-hand side of the screen. And so, it is just one way in which Nexthink can be used to drive this continual service improvement that a number of organizations are looking for. So that's just a brief introduction to what digital experience management is. So I'm going to pass across to Dave to cover the next piece.
Thanks, Rod. Yeah, that's some seriously cool stuff. I've seen it in action, and yeah, it looks great. So, software asset management, where does SAM and ITAM fit into all of this? Well, software asset management is a wide-ranging discipline, as we all know, with the overall intended outcome of reducing our spend on software and ensuring that the software we do have is licensed in the most efficient way. The well-documented potential of these savings amounts to thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of euros or dollars, and for whatever they're worth nowadays, pounds. Here at License Dashboard, we've seen firsthand some very capable ITAM teams we work with do just that. True software asset management is not a one-off event. It's a continual process. It's all about making the most of what we currently have, optimization, and of course, planning for the future. Technology underpins all of our organizations, and ITAM is the foundation of understanding where we are where we want to go, and of course, understanding what's needed to be done for us to get there. SAM is a great data platform to drive many of your digital business initiatives. These are things such as transformation programs, taking things to the cloud, OS migrations, or any other significant IT related project. If you put it simply, unless you know the minutiae of what you currently have, be it a server that you want to put into AWS, you're not going to be able to estimate the performance or capacity you would reasonably need once it gets there. And if you don't know how all of the software on it is currently licensed, you may well miss out on opportunities such as hybrid use rights and bring your own license in. It gives your procurement team the data it needs to make better IT purchasing decisions. And of course, it's going to allow platform and product owners to manage their applications, saving that money and ensuring the necessary compliance. For those areas where compliance is a given, things like software as a service, infrastructure, or platform as a service, you need to switch the focus from compliance to cost containment, challenging the actual need for the paid for capacity or things like user subscription types. So, standardizing company software. One of the most tangible ways you can see software asset management having a positive impact on your employees' digital experience is by using your SAM program to help identify the best software that your employees should be using. So application rationalization is a major focus for many organizations. And I know we've got quite a number of US organizations, so there's a big federal initiative over in the US at the moment aimed at reducing down the number of disparate software programs installed on an IT network. So this is to reduce cost, improve security, and enable crucial things like training and user experience to be better delivered. There are a number of initiatives, as I said, in the US for all federal agencies, and they obviously recognize the benefits and efficiencies that this is going to bring to end users. And of course, the back office of people that support them, as well as lowering the costs of software acquisition. Application rationalization, it begins with understanding what's installed in your network and associating each install to a software category, a clear and defined software category, to be clear about what function it does, so that you can link it with other similar products or actually understand the function of that software and whether it's appropriate for an end user's role. We've all seen the outputs from network and discovery tools, things like SCCM, and we may have an idea about the data that's coming back from us, what the core stack is, but of course some of the software titles that we see coming in from these systems might be bemusing to some because they're quite obscure products that are out there. So here at License Dashboard, we automate that process by associating a clear code. So we use the UNSPSC naming convention, and we assign a code to every piece of software in our dictionary. So this will allow our users of our platform to filter and report on every piece of software that you've got out there and filter on it by category. So things like archiving software, compression software, video conferencing software. This quickly highlights where an organization have got multiple applications that are covering the same requirement. For example, this could be multiple software compression apps, photo editing programs, or even browsers that you didn't even know were installed. By standardizing these and reducing the number of titles that you've got out there, you're not only reducing spend and enabling tighter cybersecurity, but you're also making it easy for your employees to understand what software they should be used for what purpose, and be able to provide training opportunities on specific software applications that have been approved by a business, and make sure that people are really getting the efficiencies that we know is out there with the technology, and of course these fantastic products that are out in the marketplace to help us to do our jobs more effectively and more efficiently. So I think at this point I'm going to hand over to Rod, who's going to show how Nexthink uncover the software that's installed on a device And
Thank you,
after
Dave. Yeah,
this,
certainly.
I'll give a quick overview of how the application rationalization process is done in our reporting tool. So over to you, Rod.
Yeah, move on to the next slide, please, Dave. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so I mentioned in my introduction to Nexthink about the fact we deploy this small data collector on each one of those end user devices. And okay, normally, again, if Dave and I had been in the same room, I would have shown you some live software at this point. I'm going to show you some live software at the end, but just to make it a bit simpler and I'm not darting backwards and forwards between application slides all the time, I've just embedded some screenshots in here to make it say a bit simpler. This is a screenshot from the Nexthink Finder, so the technical part of the Nexthink solution. And what we can see here is just some of the data that Nexthink collects from those end user devices. And literally, when you actually deploy these out to your workforce, and literally as soon as that collector is deployed on that machine, you can watch this data start to actually populate these views inside the Nexthink Finder. And I'm not sure if you can see it clearly or not, but if you look down here, you can just see some of the data that we collect as standard out of the box. You know, you can see this machine here is a Lenovo machine. We can see it's an iCore 7. It's got 8 GB of RAM on it. If we move down a little bit further, we can see what IP and MAC addresses it's got. If we move down to the next section, we can see, you know, when it was booted, what the boot duration is. So you can see we are collecting some really granular, valuable data from these end user machines. And not only is it around, you know, the actual, you know, the properties around the end user machine, of course, we're also examining what software is running, what software installs, what's installed, and what's being used as well. And so this is one of the ways in which Nexthink can provide this information into License Dashboard to allow them this, you know, to allow this nice synergy between these two products. And at that point, I'm going to pass back to Dave again to go through the next piece.
Sure, thanks, Rod. So if I just bring up License Dashboard portal and share it again, what I was going to do is demonstrate at this point how a license dashboard takes all of that software usage information and transforms it. So you'll be familiar with other technologies that you might have out there that is grabbing that data of what software titles are deployed across the network. Here at License Dashboard, we put some additional intelligence to that. So we have in our License Dashboard Portal 3, we have an app that helps us understand all of the UNSPSC categories, all of the products, and of course the density of that software footprint across our estate. So if we wanted to look at video software, for example, I could just type in all or part of a description, and I can see that we've got certain amounts of video conferencing software in this particular organization. We can see the UNSPSC code, we can see the title, the description, we can see how many product installs we have, or how many unique products that we've got out there. And we can see that there's 45 different types of product that are out there, over 40,000 installations. When we look at the backend data, we can sort of see the opportunities for rationalization. So we can see all of the different vendor names, we can see all of the different products, and of course all of the various versions that we've got out there and the quantity of installs. So just on video conferencing alone, so if we take the current predicament that we find ourselves in, License Dashboard, we're using Teams. Of course, we want to make sure everybody's using Teams so that we can collaborate and work closely. What I could do as an end user organization is identify products that perhaps we shouldn't be using. People might have old products that they prefer from a different job. We need to educate and we need to move those on. We're also able to run a huge variety of reports in Portal, just about categories alone. So if I wanted to look at my active installs for product categorization, again, it's going to give me a really good understanding of all of the products that are out there, the unique product titles, if they're licensable, how much am I actually spending on them? And as you'd expect, you know, there's going to be all sorts of drill downs to get to that data. But also, product categorization helps us understand so many other things. And part of License Dashboard Portal is the ability for us to take a tile or a chart and actually understand things like financial exposure by category. And we're able to do that within the self-service area of License Dashboard Portal, where we can just click on a click chart and really get some power behind the visualization. Choose the financial exposure chart, and we can add in another element for financial exposure. So I'm just going to duplicate this chart. It might be that I'm not interested in the geographic location, but what I am going to do is put in a heat map. So again, this financial exposure chart is telling us what our risk is across the business units historically in desktop servers and for products. But if I wanted to look and understand it by category of software product, I can certainly do so very quickly in the system. So here, that's done. Not only do I understand Microsoft's my biggest risk and which products in the Microsoft stack are the highest offending, I can also do a tactical piece of work on CAD software, for example. I can see where all the CAD server is deployed, what products I've got in use, what my usage or exposure has been over time. So the ability to make informed decisions based upon the unique ability to classify software is fantastic and great to have in a platform. So if I just go back to the slides now, where we left off. And yeah, we're on to employee-led digital transformation. So I guess, Rod, this is for you to explain a bit more about the background of digital transformation.
Yeah, sure. So go to the next slide, please, Dave. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so one of the things that people use Nexthink for, I showed you that digital experience score, and what that allows you to do is actually benchmark your current level of activity, your current level of performance. And I say one of the key things it's used for is in transformation projects to first of all identify where there might be areas of delivery that aren't working so well, but also to benchmark where you are with those. So if you start to deploy a new solution, whether it could be moving in this example, you're moving to Office 365, you could be moving from Skype for Business to Teams, you could be moving from your own data center into the cloud. It doesn't matter what type of digital transformation you're going through, and obviously different digital transformation means different things to different people. But what Nexthink gives you the ability to do is benchmark where you are before you start your transformation. It allows you to benchmark as you go through your transformation, and it allows you to benchmark when you've come out of your transformation to make sure you've actually achieved what you wanted to before you started. And we can see down here in this particular view, say it's example is an Office 365 transformation. We've got 461 machines in scope, 55 have been actually transformed into Office 365, and we can see their various statistics showing how happy the users are and what the basic adoption is. If we move on to the next page, please, Dave. Again, just another view, but this time again showing the overall status. We can show what the performance of Office 365 has been like during the transformation. You know, the percentage of crashes, freezes, availability of networks. And again, if we look down the bottom, we can see the user feedback about what they like about the transformation into Office 365 and maybe what they don't like. So how does Nexthink collect this information then? So if you move on again then, Dave. So what we actually have at Nexthink is we call them campaigns, but they're basically these little pop-up windows, and they're used for two things. Firstly, you can use it to push information out. So again, you could be suffering a serious problem in service delivery, and it could be you want to allow users to understand, you know, that you're going through a problem. So please don't raise any more incidents because IT are aware of it, and you know we're looking for a fix, and we'll keep you informed. Alternatively, what we also use them for, of course, is collecting that subjective feedback that I described when I first introduced Nexthink. And this is a key part of what we're doing. And we can see down here, it's a very, very simple little pop-up saying, how happy are you with your 365 migration? If we click again then, Dave, it then says, you know, what do you like about it? And if we click again, it then says, what don't you like about it? And we saw how those were populating those charts on that dashboard that we just came from. The key thing about this is, though, where people use other survey tools that rely upon emails, you know, it relies somebody going into email and responding to that email, and response rate are something like 10 and 15%. Because Nexthink has this ability to use these little pop-up windows, we get response rates of something like between 60 and 80% with the campaigns that we run. And so we're getting far better information from a far broader user base than you would get from using other types of solutions. So just a bit of an overview about how we can help with those transformation programs. Across to you again, Dave.
Thanks, Rod. That looks really good. I really like the idea of that. I think we've been involved in trying to do surveys with end users, as you say, using email programs, and struggled to get that crucial feedback to measure how we're doing. So streamlining the software request process. Well, our ITAM programs should go far beyond managing just the SAM technology and platform that we've got in place. People and processes are, of course, vital aspects of that. If we can ensure our end user employees are considered as part of our SAM program, then we're much more likely to achieve our saving and efficiency goals. One of the things that we can certainly look at is user profiling. It's key to ensuring that we're going to be marrying appropriate software titles, categories of software, and of course suitable licenses to our employees and their job functions. And of course their methodology for work. Are they home workers? Are they on-premise? But we're going to touch on that a little bit later on. Simultaneously, this is going to ensure not just satisfied and productive employees with access to the right software, but also an optimized spend with no wasted expensive licenses. User profiling is an exercise that our own licensed dashboard SAM consultants perform regularly with our customers, especially those that are looking to optimize their software estates, all about the future planning. They go about this by doing interviews conducted with a sample of end users from certain department managers to understand the true requirements and job roles and functions of these employees. From there, they help develop a strategy to ensure the right licensing is going to be procured for each user and for each department. A good example is Office 365, and I'm sure quite a lot of the people here have been exposed to wondering what sort of subscription that they should be going for. And many organizations are quickly becoming wise to this. Of course, if you do it yourself, there is going to be substantial effort involved to establish which of your users is better suited to, say, an E3 rather than an E1. The math for our US attendees always justifies that effort. Better still if you can automate some of it with your tooling. So just a couple of examples, and I just had a quick call with one of our SAM consultants yesterday just to get some current pricing. I've just got some notes here on that. The cost differential for a level C subscription is £12 per month per user. So that's, you know, for an E5 rather than an E3. That works out to £144 sterling per year. And if you think about the term of an agreement, that's £432 over a 3-year term. So if we're able to downsize 100 employees over a 3-year term from an E5 to an E3, we're probably going to save somewhere in the region of £43,000. So certainly something that's worth doing. Compliance isn't the issue that we're looking at here. We're just focusing on things like cost containment. So if you use Teams as your phone system, no, well, it's probably cheaper for you to do an E3 with add-ons. Those add-ons might be just getting an E3 with Power BI or an E3 with audio conferencing, etc. Worst case scenario, if you go through that pain and model the cost of your actual requirements, you're going to probably be in a position to negotiate with the vendor on price because they desperately want you to adopt an E5 and to try that tantalizing additional functionality out there. We can also help the procurement teams by giving them all of the data they need to make smart decisions on software renewals, new purchases, just to ensure that the requested software isn't just purchased blindly or tail end spend, where you find yourself in a position of having to renew and not having the knowledge to know whether you should do or not. Software product categorization, as we've already discussed, helps with the software request process, as SAM managers or procurement can understand if the software already requested is available and ready to use for a product of the same category elsewhere in the organization. Rod, I think you have some interesting things to talk about blacklisting software.
Yeah, absolutely. If you move on to the next slide, Dave. So one of the other things that I spoke about in my introduction, we spoke about digital transformation in the last slide. This is about compliance, basically. And so one of the things we have the capability of doing inside Nexthink, again, feeding this through information, of course, through into License Dashboard, is about what people are using and what they should be using and what they should not be using. So here's just an example of another dashboard that we have, again, out of the box inside Nexthink. And so take it from here that maybe people should be in the top example, maybe they should be using OneDrive for their data storage and their document storage. But in actual fact, they're using Dropbox and using all sorts of other bits and pieces. And so again, once you understood if people are using the wrong thing, you can use one of our engage campaigns again to actually understand, are you doing this deliberately? You should actually be using OneDrive. And similarly, if you look at the example underneath, again, maybe people should be using GoToMeeting, but you still got people using Skype and WebEx and Links and whatever else. It's just a way of understanding if people are using what they should be using, and if they're not using the correct corporate standard, it's about then being able to use the engage campaign to actually say, well, actually, you shouldn't be using this. You should be using the appropriate corporate standard. And of course, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reduce business risk by making sure people are only using the appropriate software that is actually licensed and is actually right for your organization. So with that, Dave, I'm going to pass back to you to introduce the next section.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rod. So for this particular element and ensuring the best deal on software usage, of course, it's overly apparent that we need to manage that software usage. And what I'd like to show you now, if I can, is just show you some of the analysis tools that we have available, particularly for things like Office 365. If I'll just pause that. And log in. So hopefully you can see my screen. So this is the SaaS and IaaS area of License Dashboard portal. And as you can see, we're looking at currently we're looking at SaaS usage. So we're capturing all of the SaaS product vendors. Of course, we're already compliant because it's a pay-as-you-go. But what we need to do is look at things like unassigned licenses and application utilization. And that might give us the ability to either stop subscriptions or challenge end users as to why these subscriptions aren't actually being used. But crucially, and we looked at that user profiling, we also have the ability to give some advice on Office 365. We can actually see unused features, abandoned licenses, unassigned licenses, unused features, and what we're able to do is take the opportunity to reduce spend by suggesting that it would be better to down edition from an E5 to an E3. In the portal app itself, we also have metering available. So metering is where we're actually looking at applications that are out there. We need to measure active usage or inactive usage of products. and do some telemetry on that as well. So what products do we have that are out there? How many installs are we actively metering? What's not been used in the last 90 days, because that's the key cut-off point to say, well, let's go and do some deinstallations and reharvest those installations. And if we were to remove all of those software titles that haven't been used in the last 90 days, what likely return would we have from that too? So let me just go back to the slideshow. Rod, were you going to talk a bit about SAP usage within Nexthink?
Yes, absolutely, Dave. If you click onto the next slide, please. Yeah. So again, one of the other things that that Nexthink has the ability to do, of course, is to work out who actually has access to various bits and types of software, but actually more importantly, who is actually logging on and using it. And this was just okay. This data isn't particularly great. It's some sample data from our demonstration system, but I think it demonstrates the point here, whereby on a daily basis we can work out who actually has the privileges to actually log on to a system such as SAP, and we can see here, you know, this is a sort of like a weekly or daily view showing the, you know, the peaks are the individual days sort of thing, but we can also see how many people are actually logging on. And so of the 329 people that actually have the ability to access SAP, only 6 people are logging on a regular basis. So, okay, it's a bit of an extreme example, I know, but again, it's just showing the type of information that Nexthink is collecting and can surface through dashboards, and of course then pass on to managed dashboard for them to do the more complex see the, you know, the financials. I'm going to pass back to Dave to talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. So enabling more productive remote workers, I guess this is quite a key thing for us here. I think I'll take the ensuring license compliance and managing VDI users, and I think then Rod's going to take over.
So I'll carry on. So if you move on to the next slide, Dave. Yeah. So obviously we're all living in unprecedented and perhaps rather scary times at the moment. So one of the things that Nexthink has tried to do or has done is we have launched literally within the last week or so a new digital experience remote working pack. And so what this is designed to do, it's designed to look at each of these sort of 6 areas of delivery around the devices, the web browsing, the productivity and collaboration applications, which are what we're using now. It could be Zoom, it could be Teams, it could be Outlook, it could be Skype for Business, those type of applications. The big transactional business applications, security, and employee satisfaction, but of course do it from the home working perspective. You know, this is a norm that's been sort of thrust upon us, but is probably going to be the norm for the next few months, whoever knows how long it's going to be for. And so Nexthink has brought this pack out to try and drive productivity. And actually move on to the next slide, please, Dave. We can see down here that, you know, it's designed to create 3 things. So first of all, visibility. So, you know, what's the quality of things like the network? What's the overall service performance for people who are remote working? It's designed for employees to stay productive while they are home working. It allows them to make sure they have effective collaboration with their colleagues using those collaboration tools. And it allows the IT technicians to quickly discover what's going wrong, to diagnose and fix issues quickly to make sure those home working people remain productive. The other thing we do with our actual engage type capability is we provide this 2-way communication between IT and those home workers, again, so they don't feel they're completely cut off from, you know, the outside world by being sat at home as we all are now, sort of thing. They can still engage with the IT community and find answers to questions, get issues resolved, so on and so forth. So what I'd like to actually do very quickly, David, is if you could make me presenter, I'm just going to do a very brief look-see at what this actually looks like.
Sure. That's there we go.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can see the connected to webinar.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, let's
Yeah,
go into, yeah, hopefully you can see it. Okay.
we can see it.
Okay, so this, can you see that, Dave?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, good. Right, okay, so this is our digital experience score screen. So this is the screen I showed earlier. It looks slightly different because it's the very latest shiny new one. But you know, here's the score that we round up on a daily basis. All those metrics, hard metrics and soft metrics, roll them all up on a daily basis. We can plot that over a period of time, you know, to work out, you know, how the score's been performing. We can look at the individual devices, again, scoring out of 10. We can see that lots of devices are performing really well here between 8 and 10, but actually there's lots of devices down here which are scoring only between 4 and 6. So why is that happening? We can break organizations up, literally take them down into individual sort of office and floors in office buildings, and we can roll that information up into locations, regions, countries, whatever it might be. So create hierarchies. And we then break the digital experience score down into what we call the various different domains of IT, if that's what you want to call them. So this is the Nexthink portal. If we move into the Nexthink Finder, then we were looking at that device earlier on. Let's just have a look for that device. It's CHDB207. So this is the technical part of the tool that, you know, the technicians can drill into information. If we go down into this to look at this potential, this was the screen I showed you earlier on, showing all the different properties that Nexthink was gathering from that end user device. But another one I want to very quickly show you is this screen here, and this is really like a time recording of everything that's happened on this individual device. And we can see here this is in 4-hour buckets. And this device we can see has got some high CPU utilization. And so I can condense this down into daily buckets again, and then I can scroll back to actually find out what caused that high CPU utilization. Here it is here. We can see it's happened at this point here. And actually the end user has installed something. You know, one of those conversations, did you install anything? No, I didn't. Well, actually, yes, you did. You installed 2 pieces of software, KM Player, maybe a piece of freeware, but it's also installed the arse.com toolbar. It slows everything down on machines. And so, you know, we can confirm what's been installed. Then what you can do is you can go in here and see who else has actually installed that as well. And then, of course, you can remove that if you so wish to. We showed the campaign type capability earlier on. I'm not going to touch on that. But one last thing I just wanted to bring up was I wanted to show you the the new remote working pack that we put into place. And so if we come down to here, we can look at the remote working experience. And so here again, we have a score for people who are office based and people who are remote working based. And so again, rolling that information up to provide those digital experience scores, both from a home and from an office perspective. And then again, if you want to looking down to various applications, so again, a collaboration application, which is obviously very important in these times, we can look at something like Teams performance for people working at home. Again, just a very brief view of an absolute mountain of information. We click through that collector. We can then interrogate in the Finder, but then we can surface the valuable business information through these management portals and views. And again, these packs are now linked to remote working as well. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Dave, who's going to finish off his part of the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. That looks some really good stuff, and I'm sure everybody's seeing the potential for the product in their businesses. I think, yeah, we're just approaching the promised 50 minutes. I know it's not been as exciting as you know, a soccer match, basketball, or whatever it is that you like to watch, but we'll just sort of wrap up now. Just to recap, software asset management can be used as a driver to improve your digital employee experience. It's a relatively new adage, new in that it was coined this century. Data is the new oil. We've seen how data can be used to target the consumer based upon what it is that we know about them. And software asset management is providing that vital data platform that you can use to inform and influence decisions for multiple IT stakeholders. Things like improving procurement choices, ensuring your employees have access to those correct applications that are specific to their role. As Rod's shown you, tracking transformational IT projects, and of course, enabling remote workers, or as we've recently seen, ensure business continuity. We can learn about employee engagement directly from the end users through technology such as Nexthink, and of course, sorry, hit the scroll bar there. And of course, the data and telemetry that we capture as part of software asset management, IT asset management, should also help us measure successful adoption of our technology roadmap. And we know this is going to enable our employees to work and collaborate much more effectively. And as a consequence, our businesses are going to be more productive, or as in these unprecedented times, more robust. Integrated with Nexthink's digital employee experience platform, License Dashboard Suite of SAM tools is going to provide, or can provide, that end-to-end solution for managing software and your users, just to ensure that they get easy access to the most productive software tools that they need to do and perform their roles in their jobs. And as a consequence, it's going to afford us as businesses the opportunity of saving that money and ensuring that we're spending it wisely in the right places. And of course, the byproduct of reducing any licensing non-compliance. So 50 minutes done. That's all from me and Rod today. Huge thanks for your time. Really appreciate it at this time. We certainly hope it's useful. We are going to reach out over the coming days. Ben will be with a recording of the session, and I also believe a copy of the slides. But the call to action, if you want to find out more, is to get in touch using any of the URLs or contact details on this particular slide. The final slide is just questions. I'll just pause with the contact details up there should anything come through. Ben, did any questions come through from the audience today?
Yeah, thank you, David and Rod, for that. And we do have some questions. One that I'll start with is a pretty fundamental one, which you'll be able to answer, Dave, and that is asking if Nexthink is required to be able to operate License Dashboard in the first place. So maybe if we can explain there how we... So
you just crackled, did you say is if Nexthink is required?
Exactly, yes. Is it essential that Nexthink is there, or can we work with other tools?
No, we are tool agnostic. We are designed to add that additional intelligence to existing infrastructure systems that customers might already have. It could be System Sense, it could be our own discovery tool. You know, it depends what it is that you're using to perform your everyday ITAM roles. But if you are looking for technology that will do the stuff that you saw from Rod today, then certainly we'd advocate Nexthink as a product to do that element, and we would more than happily plug into it to take it to the next level.
Great. Rod, we have a question for you. This is from a user who has network locations all over the world, over 80 different locations, and so network traffic is important for them to keep to a minimum. Can you just talk a little bit about the bandwidth that Nexthink consumes across different devices?
Yeah, sure. That's a question that always comes up, Ben, and actually it's because of the way that Nexthink is designed and the way the collectors operate. What we actually do is we drip feed information back to the engine all the time, and so there's no great heavy sort of like purge of information. That, you know, the collector doesn't store information on the local machine, or has only a very limited ability to do that for maybe about 15 minutes if network connectivity is lost. The idea, it drip feeds information back in small data packets. We actually challenged during one of our POVs one of our major customers to use their network monitoring tools, and they did have some quite complex network monitoring telemetry to monitor to see if they could see Nexthink working on about 1,000 of their end user devices coming across their network, and they couldn't pick it up. They couldn't work out where it was. And let's fundamentally face it. What we're about is about digital experience management, ensuring end users have a great user experience, and for organizations to be able to delight those end users. The last thing we want to do as an organization is actually slow those end user devices down. So that's a question that always comes up, and the answer is, it's the product is specifically designed not to cause issues, and we're only passing very small quantities of data back, maybe up to about 3 megabytes a day.
Thanks, Rod. A question that Dave and Rod will probably want to answer together here is just to talk about the differences in the capability of software metering between License Dashboard and Nexthink. If Dave, you want to give an overview of what can be metered in License Dashboard and then how it works in Nexthink, Rod?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So from a metering perspective, we're solely relying on the discovery tooling case to provide us with that metering information. The sorts of information that we are looking for, and it's the holy grail of it really, is to understand anything that's not been used for 90 days, because that allows us legally to, in the case of Microsoft, to reassign licenses elsewhere. But what we also like to look for is some greater details into that, because everybody says when they ask for a project, are they professional or premium or enterprise? Nobody wants the standard edition. So we need to look at whether people are actively using these products or not, how many times they're using it, what's the duration of that usage, to actually understand things of actual requirement, or indeed the training requirement, because if people aren't using the product that we bought for them, why is that? So we need to understand it from those perspectives. Rod?
Yeah, from the Nexthink's perspective. So okay, we do have some best sort of fairly basic type capability, but one of the key elements we do actually don't have is the ability to actually reconcile all the different versions of software that are potentially running. We don't have the ability to roll those up to a single version potentially, and so where we can do this in a rudimentary type way, the actual combination of Nexthink and License Dashboard actually is a far stronger solution, I think, for people who are looking to do that in any great level of depth.
Thanks, Rod. Another question for you, Rod. Is it possible to connect to ServiceNow using APIs?
Yes, again, being an ex-ServiceNow person, we have out-of-the-box integration with ServiceNow. We connect in sort of three or four different ways. We have integration to enrich CMDB, and so we've already showed we know who's actually logging on to a service and consuming a service rather than just who's got access to it. And so that's one part of information we can help with a CMDB inside ServiceNow. We can help enrich tickets with the hard objective metrics that we're collecting. We can push that information into ServiceNow, and we have a number of customers that have greatly reduced their instant triage time and first line resolution by using Nexthink information embedded in ServiceNow tickets. And finally, of course, we have real-time integration with the Nexthink chatbot, ServiceNow's virtual agent. And so again, you can automate the entire process of Nexthink and fixing your own machine through integration with the ServiceNow virtual agent. And again, although that's specific to ServiceNow, we can pretty much do the same thing on most of the instant management and service management tools out there. So Remedy, Cherwell, Landesk, we have capability with all those.
Thanks, Rod. Another question on the Nexthink side of things. Is it possible to export the data from Nexthink if a user wants to build their own Power BI dashboards?
Yes, absolutely. We provide connector type capability into Nexthink. So again, if you want to extract the information, yes, we can certainly do that. API calls. Again, we have a number of customers which are doing that also. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I think we've still got time for a couple more questions. There's plenty coming through. And as David mentioned, if we don't get time to cover everything that you wanted to know today, please just drop us an email on either of the addresses there. when we're talking about SaaS applications, perhaps David can start with this. How would license dashboard taking that information from SaaS, is that entered manually? And then likewise to Rod, is there any capability to capture SaaS applications that would be accessed through browsers?
Okay, yeah, so from our perspective, we can talk to API. I'm guessing from a SaaS perspective, we're talking about users and things like that. So we talk to most of the main portals, and we can do it through talking to those APIs and pulling out the subscription data from things like Salesforce, from things like Office 365, Adobe Creative Cloud. And then, of course, we're sort of capturing from these APIs that the vendors readily provide themselves activities such as what components, what products are in use. Further, we take it a step further with License Dashboard. Where some of those subscriptions offer an on-premise installation, we then take a link between the user, the subscriber, their alias, their standard confirmed alias, and then link it with the devices where they're the primary user, and look at what is also covered from a physical installation under that subscription. The telemetry we get from the APIs gives us information as to whether people should be down editioned, just by looking at the activity and what sort of function and what sort of usage they do whilst they're logging on.
Yeah, and from the Nexthink perspective, yes, absolutely. Again, we use Nexthink. Actually, we use Nexthink for a number of customers to monitor their ServiceNow usage, for example. To go back to the previous question, we also have things like browser plugins as well to monitor what's going on. And it's mainly looking at the network and how many people are logging on to the applications and what sort of response times they're getting across the network. If there are any sort of failed requests or anything, web requests, things like that, is that type of information that we're able to surface. But fundamentally, we can still pull quite a lot of information back about web applications. Yes, it's something that's again a pretty common ask of us.
Thanks. So the last question that we've got here is again for you, Rod, and it relates back to the metering conversation that we've been having. In Nexthink, is there an option to capture the last time a user has accessed a particular piece of software? The information would be used to repurpose the licenses if a user hasn't used the software for a considerable amount of time.
Yes, absolutely. So again, it's just one of the metrics that we capture, the last logon time that a user actually accessed that piece of software from. And so yes, that information, again, it's a standard KPI that we deliver with our library packs, which have the metrics around the specific elements that I've been showing you today. So yeah, again, it is one that we deploy very frequently. Yeah.
Great. That's everything we've had so far, Dave. So just back over to you to wrap up.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we've taken just a couple of minutes over the promised hour, so apologies for that. We do like to run a tidy ship and keep to schedule. But again, huge thanks to everybody that's taken the time to join this webinar. Hope you found it useful. Big thanks to Rod. I really enjoyed the demo, Rod. I think the application looks fantastic, and I'm sure many of our License Dashboard customers would certainly benefit from some of the great features that you've got.
That's all right, Dave. My pleasure.
So at that point, yeah, I think we'll bring it all to a close. Of course, we'll follow up as promised earlier. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.